وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة ثم أما بعد أيها الأحبة الكرام السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, I'm going to start with 2 points and then we will continue our discussions in business transactions in Islam. The first point is about joining the Salah. And I talked about this before, but it's very important because I notice many people, they're still committing the same error. You know, if you join the Salah, already started, and especially if the Imam is in the state of ruku' or in the state of sujood, so make sure that you make takbiratul ihram while you're standing up. And then move to join him in ruku' or in sujood. It's very important. According to the majority of the scholars, if someone failed to say takbiratul ihram while he's standing up, like if he said it while he's moving, you know, this salah is invalid. So according to the Hanafi, according to the Shafi'i madhab, according to the Hanbali madhab. There's one exception, which is the opinion of the Maliki, but it's not the stronger opinion. Stronger opinion of the scholars that you need to make takbiratul ihram while you're standing up. Then you move to join the Imam, whether he's in ruku' or sujood. The second point is about the day of Ashura. Today is the 5th of Muharram. And inshallah, according to the sighting of the moon, you know, the 1st of Muharram was on Tuesday, not Monday, as you know, for those who follow calculations. Okay, so based on this, the 10th of Muharram will be Thursday. So Thursday will be the 10th of Muharram. It's a sunnah to fast the 10th. Okay, and also it is highly recommended to fast the 9th and the 10th, or the 10th and the 11th. Or a higher level of recommendation is to fast 3 of them. To fast Wednesday, which is the 9th, Thursday and Friday, those 3 days. In general, fasting the many days of Muharram is highly recommended. يعني as the Prophet ﷺ says, أحب الصيام إلى الله غير رمضان صيام شهر الله المحرم. The best fast, besides fasting the month of Ramadan, is fasting the month of Muharram, many days of month of Muharram. We, alhamdulillah, finished talking about the contracts of exchange. We talked about al-bay' as the sale contract and the different types of sale contracts. We talked about al-ijara, the contract of lease or the contract of hire. And also we talked about ways to authenticate or secure debts. We talked last week about 4 types of contract to secure a debt. We talked about al-rahn, which is mortgage, right? We talked about al-kafala, which is financial guarantee. We talked about al-hiwala, which is debt transfer. And those contracts are to secure a debt. Okay. Inshallah, starting from today, we're going to talk about partnership. Partnership. You know, contracts in Islam is either contracts of exchange, or contracts of charity, or contracts of partnership. We talked about contracts of exchange, and inshallah, we're going to talk now about partnership in Islam. The partnership is divided into 2 parts. We have trading partnership and agricultural partnership. Trading partnership and agricultural partnership. And each one of those 2 types are divided into subdivisions. The trading partnership is divided into 4 parts or 4 subdivisions. The first subdivision is called al-mudaraba. Al-mudaraba, when 2 partners, one of them provides capital and the other one provides labor or services. This is the first type of trading partnership, which is called al-mudaraba. Two parties, one provides the funds, the capital, and the other provides labor and services. The second type of trading partnership is called the financial partnership. Financial partnership, financial partnership, you have two partners, both of them provide capital and labor or services. This is the financial partnership. The third type of trading partnership is called Sharikatul Abdan. In this type of partnership, no capital is provided by neither of the two parties provide any capital, but they provide labor. Like you have two brothers have the same profession or different profession, two IT professionals, they get together. There is no capital, but they use their expertise and the services that they're going to provide as partner between them. Okay, it's called Sharikat al-Abdan. This is the third type. The fourth type is called Sharikat al-Wujuh, or the eminent people partnership. Now here we have two partners. They do not have funds beforehand, but they have reputation, good reputation. They are known in the market. They have good creditworthiness. So they get together in a partnership that they will take or get goods in credit and sell it to make profit, or invest it to make profit. Okay. What's common about those types of partnership? That the profit should be distributed among them, among the partners, according to the agreed ratio or the agreed percentage. Okay. Inshallah, we'll get to details of this, inshallah, later on. Now, this is the first type of partnership, which is the trading partnership. Four types: mudaraba, okay, two partners, one provide the capital and the other provide the labor. Okay. The second one, financial partnership. Both parties provide both labor and finances or capital. The third type of this trading partnership is Sharikatul Abdan. Thus, both parties provide only their labor or services. And the fourth subdivision of trading partnership is Sharikatul Wujuh, which is the eminent people partnership. For the agricultural partnership, we have three subdivisions. The first one is called Al-Muzara. Al-Muzara, when a farmer provides the land and the plants and the trees to someone to work in it for a share of the produce or the product of that land. Okay, it's called Muzara. The second type is called Al-Musaqa. Al-Musaqa, when the farmer provides the land, the trees, the plants, but the other party will provide, will do the watering or the irrigation of the plants and the trees for a percentage or a ratio of whatever that land produces. And the last one is called Al-Mugharasa. Al-Mugharasa is when the farmer provides the land only, while the other party will plant the trees for a share in the profits or whatever being harvested or cultivated from that land. Those are the three types of agricultural companies. So inshallah today I'm going to talk about Al-Mudaraba. Al-Mudaraba is the first subdivision of the trading companies. Mudaraba was derived from the word, in Arabic, the word daraba. Daraba fil ard. Like the ayat read in the first rak'ah of Salat al-Fajr, Salat al-Muzammil.
علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله
يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله. يضربون في الأرض means they go and walk on the earth, trading, making money, buying and selling. This is the root word for mudaraba. It has another name. Sometimes it's called al-qirad. The same partnership of mudaraba is sometimes called al-qirad. طيب. This is the linguistic meaning of mudaraba, okay, which is derived from daraba fil ard, okay. But as a technical term, al-mudaraba is a partnership between two partners, of course. One of them provides the fund, the capital, okay, and the other one provides the labor or the services. طيب. المضاربة, it is legal by a sunnah taqririyah. It is the sunnah. It is become legal by the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the ijma' of all the scholars, the unanimous consensus of the scholars. All the scholars agreed that al-mudaraba is a legal transaction in Islam. And also remember, we said the general rule that any transaction is considered to be lawful unless we have a proof or an evidence that shows that it is illegal or it is unlawful, and we do not have such a proof. In fact, we have the proof that it proof of its legality. Okay, from the Sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ, saw the Sahaba use this type of business transaction, and he accepted that. This is called taqrir, tacit approval, that he approved those type of dealings. And he himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this before Islam, he used, when he get the deal with Khadija, radiallahu ta'ala anha, that type of transaction taken by the Prophet ﷺ is mudaraba, because she is the owner of the funds, she is the owner of the capital, and he is the one who did the labor. Okay. Besides the unanimous consensus of all the scholars that agree that mudaraba is a valid transaction in Islam. Okay, so it is a contract between two partners. One of them provides the capital, the funds, and the other provides the labor. Okay, and this is very important, that the profits would be distributed between the two partners according to an agreed upon ratio. It should not be a fixed amount. It has to be a ratio. Like you get 1/3 of the profit, and I will get 2/3. Or I get 1/4, 1/4, you get 3/4. Or I get 50%, you get 50%. 20%, 80%. It should be a ratio. It should not be a fixed amount. This is very important condition. Okay. And this condition is applied to all types of trading and also agricultural partnership. This is what distinguishes the contracts of exchange from the contracts of partnership. In partnership, the profit has to be distributed among the partners according to agreed ratio, agreed percentage, not a fixed amount. While in the contract of exchange, like for example, the contract of hire, you can hire a person to do something for a fixed amount of money, like for $20 or for $100. In partnership, or especially here in mudaraba, you cannot get into this transaction telling the labor or the one who's going to provide the service, you will get $1,000 or $100. It has to be a ratio of the profit. Okay? So the most important thing that the profit should be ratio or percentage between the two partners. If there is profit, of course, it would be shared according to the agreed on ratio. If there is losses, who is going to bear the loss? Rabbul Mal, the owner of the funds, the owner of the capital. And the labor will lose his effort. Okay? Because they get in that partnership. I'm going to provide my expertise, my services, my labor. You provide the fund. If there is gains, then they will share the gains according to, say, 50-50 or 40-60%. Okay? If there are losses, the labor will lose his effort, And of course, the financial loss will be borne by the capital provider. Let's take an example. If he invested $1,000 in a mudaraba transaction, okay? At the end of that mudaraba, they have loss. They started with 1,000 and they end up with $800. So the labor loses his effort, and the Rabb al-Mal, the owner of the funds, lose this $200. Okay? طيب. The owner of the fund is called Rabbul Mal. Rabbul Mal. And the labor or the provider of the service is called Al-Mudarab. Al-Mudarab. There are two types of Mudaraba. The first one is called Al-Mudaraba Al-Mutlaqa. Al-Mudaraba Al-Mutlaqa is unlimited or unrestricted Mudaraba. Like you give the fund to the labor and you give him the ultimate freedom to do whatever business he wants to do. No restriction as to the type of the business, type of the activities, the timing for the end of this contract. Okay. There is no restriction. This is called the unlimited. And this is the type of mudaraba that agreed upon by all the scholars. Okay. The second type of mudaraba is called the limited or restricted mudaraba. And this is when the owner of the funds, the owner of the capital, will restrict the activities of the labor or al-mudarab. For example, he could restrict him to invest this money only in purchasing food, for example, or doing this type of business. Okay. Also, restriction as time-wise, like this mudaraba has a period, like you invest this money for 1 year or 2 years or 6 months. Okay. Now, this type of mudaraba, there is disagreement concerning this type among the scholars. It is approved by the Hanafi and the Hanbali madhab that this type of mudaraba is acceptable, and there is no violation to any of the Islamic or Sharia rules by doing this type of mudaraba. Okay. But the first type of mudaraba, which to give ultimate freedom to the labor or the service provider to choose whatever business he likes. Of course, the line of business should be, in accordance with the Sharia of Islam. But he cannot restrict him to what type of business to do or the length or the period of this mudaraba. In the first type of mudaraba, as I said, the labor or the service provider can choose the type of business, whatever he sees fit or can make more profit, he can do it, without going back to the Rabb al-Mal, to the owner of the funds. So it goes, everything is done according to the expertise of the labor of this or the service provider. Okay. As for the other one, which is the restricted type of mudaraba, here the type of business, the location, the time is conditions set or restrictions imposed by the owner of the funds, and for the labor to abide by those. He cannot go against those. Okay. In this type of mudaraba, in the middle of the mudaraba, Rabb al-Mal has the right to force, for example, the labor, for example, to do some type of actions. Like he can force him if, for example, they are selling rice, okay? Or the restriction that the money should be invested in this type of business, to just purchase rice and sell it for higher price to make profit, okay? Now, if the prices of rice could bring gain of, say, $1 per pound, but the labor or the service provider or the one who's al-mudarab, he thinks if they wait for a month, it might go up because of his expertise. Now, if it is restricted mudaraba, then Rabb al-Mal can force him to sell now, not to wait a month from there. But if it is mutlaqa, he has the ultimate authority to decide when to sell that product. Okay, this is one of the differences between the restricted and unrestricted type of mudaraba. طيب. What are the conditions for the validity of this contract of mudaraba besides the general conditions for the validity for contract like having the two parties of the contract being sane, legally competent, you know, those type of general conditions. There are specific conditions to al-mudaraba. The majority of the scholars said that the capital must be in cash money. It cannot be a commodity. It has to be money. Okay? This is according to the majority of the scholars. But according to other scholars, no, it does not have to be money. Now, those who said it has to be money because they said money, it has a constant value. But if they started with, for example, a commodity to be invested in mudaraba transaction, you know, at the end of the mudaraba, the capital should be returned back to the owner of the capital, and then the profit should be divided between them. Okay. Now, this could create confusion, or, for example, debate or argument between the two at the time or when the mudaraba ends, because commodities have different prices. The prices for commodities fluctuate. They might start with like 1,000 pounds of rice, okay, invested in the mudaraba transaction. But at the end, like 6 months later, the price of that rice is not the same like 6 months ago. This is why the majority of scholars said the capital must be restricted to money. Some other scholars said no, it could be any commodity that has a value and it can be owned. And this could be eliminated. The dispute could be eliminated by evaluating the price of that commodity at the time of the contract. Okay, for example, 1,000 pounds of rice worth now, for example, $1,000. Now, this would be considered Ra's al-Mal. The capital now is considered in the contract as $1,000. Okay, and this will remove the possibility of any dispute in the future. And this second opinion is adopted by many contemporary scholars like Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen and others. And they said, you know, it is not in any violation of any Sharia rule, and it could be determined precisely at the time of the contract how much capital provided by the owner of the capital. The second condition, that the capital must be specified, okay, as to the amount. For example, the description, if it is money, how much and what currency, like $1,000, 2,000 euros, it has to be specified very clearly. Also, if it is a commodity, you know, how much, the measure, the type, the quality, everything of that should be determined precisely. The third condition, that upon signing the contract or conclusion of the contract of mudaraba, then the owner of the fund should deliver the funds to the laborer, to the one who is going to invest that fund. Okay, completely. He has to give him, if he wants to invest this $1,000 in a mudaraba transaction, he has to hand this $1,000 to the mudarab. Okay, or the commodity to the mudarab. A fourth condition, they said رأس المال يجب أن يكون عينا لا دينا. Now the capital should not be dead. يعني for example, if he owes the owner of, if a person owes another person $1,000, he cannot tell him, you know, that $1,000 you owe me, invest it in a mudaraba transaction. This is unacceptable. But he can, for example, if a third party owes him money, he can assign him to collect the debt from him and then invest it in mudaraba. Yeah, the scholars, they try to get into these types of conditions to eliminate any possibility of disputes, disagreement between the parties later on. Okay? The fifth condition, that the predetermined profit must be a ratio or a percentage. as I said, this is one of the characteristics of the partnership transactions, that the profit all the time is a ratio, is not a fixed amount. But if they did not mention any ratio or any percentage, like he said, take this capital and invest it in mudaraba, okay, and it will be between us. The profit will be between us. Now this should be interpreted that as it is 50-50. Because literally the word musharaka means to be partner with somebody else. Partnership indicates equality, that we are two partners. If you do not mention any ratio, then the profits would be divided between them into 50-50, or 1/2 of the profit for the owner of the capital and the other half for the labor or the service provider. When al-mudaraba is confirmed, al-mudarab, or the labor or the service provider, becomes a wakil or a representative for the capital owner, that he will do all the transactions, all the activities, as long as it is unrestricted mudaraba. All the activities he will do it on behalf of the owner of that capital. Now, if something happened to that capital, like it was lost or stolen or damaged, okay, who would be responsible for the funds? Now, the scholar said if this happens without any negligence from his part, then he is not responsible for that. Like he took care of that capital, okay, every precaution he took it, but something happened, a tornado or anything, and that property damage or that commodity damage or that wealth gone or stolen, then he would not, the labor is not responsible for that. لأن يده يد أمانة, because he was entrusted. And anyone who's entrusted with something, if he safeguarded but something out of his control happened, he will not be responsible for that. Okay, but if this damage happened because of negligence from his part, he's not taking care of that, of course he will bear the responsibility. Some related points to the issue of mudaraba, that first, the profit cannot be distributed until the equity of the owner of the fund has been fully restored. Like if he invested $1,000 in a mudaraba transaction, okay, the two should not distribute the profits among them until the $1,000 get back to the owner. Okay, then whatever left, this is a profit that would be distributed between the two. Al-mudarab, or the labor, cannot claim any salary, any periodic payment during the mudaraba. He's only entitled, at the end of the mudaraba, he's only entitled to his share from the profit. But he should not receive any payment while the mudaraba is going on. When the contract of mudaraba is terminated, first, if the fund of the mudaraba is exhausted, if they lost everything, this contract is automatically dissolved and terminated. Okay? The death of one of the two parties, al-mudarab or the owner of the funds, if any one of them died, then this terminates this partnership. At any time, either of the two parties can terminate the mudaraba. Any time during the mudaraba, each one of them has the right to terminate. Now remember, this is not available in exchange contracts. In exchange contracts, once it is done, then you cannot change your mind, unless if you stipulated a condition. Here you have the right, each one of the two parties has the right to terminate the contract anytime during the mudaraba, providing that this termination will not harm the other party. Okay. And one way, if you get in such transaction, one way to protect your interest is to stipulate a condition at the time of the contract. Like, for example, you can stipulate a condition that neither of us has the right to terminate this contract. Or if one of us terminated the contract prematurely before the end of the mudaraba, he should pay such and such penalty. Okay. Now this type of penalty is called ash-shatt al-jazai, is acceptable in every type of contract except contracts that involves debt. If there is a debt, like if he is late in the payment of a debt, you cannot apply such type of penalty. Okay, but for other types of contracts, it's legal Islamically to apply penalty. So, just to protect your interest as the labor or as the fund provider, at the time of the contract, you can stipulate a condition like this. If any one of us or any one of the two parties terminated the contract prematurely, then he has to pay such and such amount of money or to give this compensation. Okay? Also, the contract of mudaraba is terminated by the expiration of the time period if it is restricted mudaraba. If the mudaraba is restricted to a time period, then by the expiration of that time period, the contract of mudaraba is expired. This is about al-mudaraba. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll talk about the other three types of musharaka or partnership, which is the financial partnership and the eminent people partnership and the partnership which is called al-abdan, that the partnership of profession. نعم الله تعالى أجل وأعلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على محمد.